Pisces, there is a reason this connection feels different now, a reason the energy no longer feels suspended in uncertainty, but gently leaning forward. You may not see obvious movement yet, but you can feel it, a subtle shift from stillness into motion. This is how meaningful connections begin to move forward, quietly, without chaos, without force. Something has changed. Where there was once hesitation, there is now readiness. Where there was once emotional distance, there is now awareness. And where there was once waiting, there is now alignment. This connection is no longer circling the question of what if. It is approaching the moment of what's next. Pisces, you are not imagining this momentum. The reason you feel this shift is because both energies involved have reached a point of clarity. Not dramatic clarity, not rushed certainty, but grounded understanding. You've done the inner work to stabilize your emotion, to trust your intuition, to stop chasing outcomes. And as you did that, the connection began responding naturally. Connections move forward when resistance dissolves. This person feels the change too. They may not express it outwardly yet, but internally, something has settled. The emotional questioning has softened. The fear has quieted. The sense of, I don't know what to do with this, is slowly transforming into, I understand what this means. That internal shift is powerful. Pisces and movement does not always begin with action. It begins with emotional permission, permission to feel, permission to acknowledge, permission to allow something meaningful to exist without immediately trying to control it. And right now, that permission is forming on both sides. You may notice that when you think about this person now, the feeling is different, less heavy, less uncertain, more calm, more present. That's because the connection is no longer stuck in limbo. It's transitioning into expression, even if that expression hasn't surfaced yet. This forward movement is not rushed. It's intentional. You are both approaching this connection from a place of maturity rather than impulse, from awareness rather than longing, from alignment rather than fear. That is why it feels steady instead of intense. Real progress often feels quieter than imagined. Pisces, this connection is about to move forward because there is no longer emotional resistance blocking. The universe removes resistance when both people are ready to meet the connection without projecting old wounds onto it. You've reached that place, and now the energy between you is reorganizing itself to reflect that readiness. You may feel moments of anticipation, but without anxiety, curiosity, but without pressure, hope, but without attachment. These emotional signals are important. They tell you that what's coming is meant to integrate into your life, not disrupt it. This is not a turning point filled with drama. This is a turning point filled with clarity. Pisces, the reason this connection is about to move forward is not because you waited long enough or wanted it badly enough. It's because you became someone capable of receiving it without losing yourself. And when that happens, movement becomes inevitable. In the next part, we'll go deeper into what this forward movement looks like, how it begins to express itself emotionally and practically, and why it unfolds in a way that feels natural instead of overwhelming. Pisces. As this connection begins to lean forward, you may start noticing how the energy around it feels more defined, not louder, not more intense, but clearer. There's less emotional fog, less second guessing, less internal debate. Instead, there is a quiet sense of direction forming, like a path becoming visible as you walk it rather than before you begin. This is how aligned movement feels. You may notice that your intuition is no longer sending mixed signals. Where once you felt uncertainty, now you feel steadiness. Where once you questioned timing, now you feel patience without frustration. That emotional shift is significant because it means the connection is no longer testing your emotional balance. It's supporting it. This person is experiencing a similar internal change. They may be realizing that the connection hasn't faded despite time or distance, that it hasn't weakened when attention shifted elsewhere, that it hasn't dissolved when silence. These realizations bring clarity, and clarity brings movement. Pisces, people don't move forward emotionally until they feel safe doing so. What's changing now is the sense of safety, emotional safety, safety to feel without being overwhelmed, safety to acknowledge connection without losing control, safety to move towards something meaningful without fearing that it will cost them their peace. That safety has been building quietly. You may notice moments where this person feels more present energetically, moments where their awareness of you feels closer, more grounded. This doesn't always translate into immediate action, but it does translate into emotional availability. And availability is the doorway through which connection moves forward. Pisces, you are no longer standing at the edge of uncertainty. You are standing at the edge of expression. This doesn't mean everything happens at once. It means things begin to align naturally. Conversations feel more intentional. Interactions feel more focused. Silences feel purposeful rather than empty. This is the difference between stagnation and transition. You may also notice that your own behavior has changed without effort. You're not waiting. You're not watching for signs. You're not trying to interpret every moment. You're living your life grounded in your own energy. And that grounded presence is magnetic. Movement happens when neither person feels the need to force it. Pisces, this connection is moving forward because both of you have reached a point where awareness outweighs fear, where curiosity outweighs doubt, where presence outweighs projection. That balance creates momentum without pressure. There may be moments where you feel an internal nudge, not to act impulsively, but to remain open, to listen, to allow things to unfold without resistance. These nudges are subtle, but they matter. They guide you toward alignment rather than reaction. This forward movement is also teaching you something important about timing. Timing is not about waiting passively or rushing forward. It's about readiness. And readiness is something you feel, not something you calculate. Pisces, readiness feels calm. You may sense that whatever comes next will feel natural, not surprising. It won't shock your system or disrupt your peace. It will integrate into your life in a way that feels supportive rather than consuming. That's because this connection is no longer trying to get your attention. It already has it, gently and steadily. In the next part, we will explore how this movement begins to show itself externally, what subtle signs indicate progress, and how to stay aligned as things continue to unfold, without falling back into old patterns of overthinking or emotional anticipation. Pisces, as this forward movement continues taking shape, you may begin to notice how subtly it starts to appear in the external world, not as a sudden declaration or dramatic gesture, but as a gentle shift in behavior, tone, and presence. These are the signs that matter. Real progress rarely announces itself loudly. It reveals itself through consistency and intention. You may sense this person becoming more attentive, more emotionally present, more aware of how their words and actions affect you. There is a growing mindfulness in the way they interact with you. Even if the changes seem small on the surface, small changes are often the most meaningful because they come from internal clarity rather than impulse. Pisces, when someone begins to move forward emotionally, their energy changes before their actions do. You may notice that communication feels different now, more grounded, less tentative, less guarded. There may be fewer gaps filled with uncertainty and more moments that feel intentional. Even silence feels different, not like distance, but like space being held with care. This is an important distinction. Distance creates doubt. Space creates trust. This connection is shifting from distance into space. You may also notice that your intuition no longer feels the need to alert you constantly. There is no inner alarm, no emotional urgency. Instead, there is a steady awareness that something is aligning at its own pace. That calmness is not indifference, it's confidence. Pisces, confidence grows when alignment replaces uncertainty. This person may begin to reveal themselves more emotionally, even if subtly. They may share something personal. They may reference the future in small ways. They may show curiosity about your world, your thoughts, your feelings. These gestures signal openness. They show that the connection is no longer being observed from a distance. It's being engaged with. And you feel the difference. Your body responds differently now. You don't tense. You don't brace yourself. You remain present. That physical response is crucial because it tells you that this connection is no longer triggering old emotional patterns. It's meeting you where you are now, emotionally aware, grounded, and open. Pisces, this is what emotional progress feels like. You may also find that your reactions are calmer. You're not reading between every line. You're not searching for hidden meanings. You're allowing communication to be what it is, trusting that clarity will emerge naturally. That trust is not naive. It's informed by your intuition, which has grown stronger through experience. This forward movement is also reshaping your expectations. You're no longer asking for reassurance. You're observing presence. You're no longer measuring in. You're feeling consistency. This shift keeps you aligned with yourself while allowing the connection to develop. Pisces, alignment always begins internally before it becomes visible externally. There may be moments where you sense that something significant is approaching, not because of a specific sign, but because of a general feeling of readiness. You feel prepared, not anxious, open, not exposed, curious, not attached. These emotional cues indicate that you're in the right state to receive whatever unfolds next, and whatever unfolds next will feel natural. This connection does not demand that you rush or pause your life. It fits into your rhythm. It respects your pace. It honors your growth. That's why it feels different from anything you've experienced before. It's not pulling you off center, it's reinforcing. In the next part, we will explore how this connection continues to unfold without force, how momentum builds gently over time, and how you can remain present and aligned as things move forward, without falling into anticipation or self doubt. Pisces, as momentum continues to build, you may notice how this connection no longer feels like something you're waiting on. Instead, it feels like something that is already in motion, even if quietly. There's a sense that the energy has shifted from contemplation into alignment, from possibility into preparation. This is not impatience, it's readiness. Readiness feels calm. You may sense that your emotional responses are steadier now. Situations that once triggered overthinking no longer do. You respond instead of react. You observe instead of assume. This shift is important because it means the connection is no longer operating through old emotional patterns. It's unfolding in a new emotional environment, one shaped by your growth. This person feels that change as well. They may notice that being around your energy feels grounding rather than overwhelming, that conversations flow more naturally, that they don't feel the need to guard themselves as much. Emotional safety creates movement because it removes the fear of being misunderstood or losing control. Pisces, people move forward when they feel emotionally safe to do so. This safety doesn't come from reassurance or pressure. It comes from consistency, from knowing that the connection doesn't demand immediate answer, from sensing that they can show up authentically without being pushed into outcomes they're not ready to define yet. As a result, their presence may become more intentional. They may check in more naturally. They may make space for you in subtle ways. They may begin to include you in their emotional world rather than keeping you at the edges. These gestures may seem small, but they represent significant internal shifts, and you notice them, not with anxiety, but with awareness. Your intuition remains clear and steady. You're not searching for confirmation anymore. You're recognizing alignment as it unfolds. This recognition allows you to stay present without attachment, open without vulnerability turning into exposure. Pisces, this balance is what allows connections to move forward sustainably. You may also notice that your sense of timing has changed. You're no longer asking, when will this happen? You're asking, how do I remain aligned while it unfolds? That change in focus keeps you centered. It prevents you from slipping back into anticipation or emotional projection. This connection is teaching you patience without waiting, presence without control, openness without sacrifice, and that lesson is valuable beyond this bond. As things continue to move forward, you may feel moments of clarity where you understand why the connection had to develop slowly, why certain phases needed time, why awareness needed to mature before action could follow. That understanding brings peace rather than frustration. Pisces, nothing meaningful was delayed. Everything was prepared. You are now in a space where the next steps, whatever they may be, can be received without destabilizing. You won't be pulled off center by expression. You won't lose yourself in outcomes. You'll remain grounded in your own energy, allowing the connection to integrate naturally into your life. This is not the beginning of something chaotic. It's the continuation of something aligning. In the next part, we will move deeper into how this connection expresses itself when it truly moves forward, what emotional clarity looks like in practice, and how to stay rooted in your intuition as momentum continues to build. Pisces, as this connection continues to move forward, you may begin to notice how clarity starts to replace anticipation. You're no longer imagining what might happen. You're sensing what is already unfolding. That difference changes the way everything feels. Instead of waiting for a sign, you recognize the pattern. Instead of questioning intention, you feel consistency. This is where momentum becomes real. You may notice that your intuition feels especially steady now. There's no emotional noise, no internal conflict pulling you in opposite direction. You're not trying to protect yourself from disappointment because disappointment no longer feels likely. Not because you expect a specific outcome, but because you trust your ability to remain grounded regardless of what happens. Pisces, This trust is the foundation of forward movement. This person is beginning to operate from a similar place. They are no longer circling the connection mentally. They are accepting it emotionally. And acceptance brings presence. When someone accepts what they feel, they stop resisting. When resistance fades, expression becomes possible. You may sense moments where their attention feels more focused, more intentional, moments where they seem emotionally present in a way that feels unmistakable. This doesn't have to be dramatic. It may show up as attentiveness, thoughtfulness, or a genuine interest in your emotional world. These are signs of someone stepping forward internally before doing so externally. Pisces, internal movement always precedes external change. You may also notice that you feel less need to define the connection. You're not rushing to label it or understand its final form. You're allowing it to reveal itself through experience rather than expectation. That allowance keeps the energy open and balanced. This is important because forcing definition too early can create pressure. Allowing definition to emerge naturally creates stability. You're also learning how to remain present without overextending emotionally. You're engaging without giving more than feels aligned. You're open without abandoning your boundary. This balance ensures that when the connection does move forward more visibly, it does so on healthy ground. Pisces, healthy connections don't require self-sacrifice to progress. As the days pass, you may begin to sense that this connection is becoming part of your emotional rhythm. It doesn't interrupt your life, it integrates into it. You think of them, but it doesn't distract you. You feel the bond, but it doesn't consume you. This integration is a sign of mutual alignment. One-sided connections dominate your emotional space. Mutual ones coexist with. You may also feel a growing sense of confidence, not about the outcome, but about yourself. You trust your intuition. You trust your boundaries. You trust your ability to navigate emotional territory with clarity rather than fear. This confidence is magnetic. It naturally draws alignment toward you. Pisces, alignment responds to alignment. The universe supports connections that are built on awareness, not urgency, on presence, not pressure. And that support becomes visible when you least expect it, because it unfolds naturally rather than dramatically. As this connection continues to move forward, you may find that your emotional life feels simpler, less cluttered, less conflicted. You know what feels right, and you honor it. You know what feels misaligned, and you release it. This clarity creates space for what truly belongs in your life to take shape. In the next part, we will explore how this connection reaches a point of tangible expression, what that expression may feel like emotional, and how to remain centered as movement becomes more visible, without slipping back into anticipation or doubt. Pisces, as this connection continues to gain form, you may begin to notice that movement becomes tangible, not through sudden events, but through a growing sense of emotional openness. What once felt unspoken now feels closer to being shared. What once felt distant now feels reachable. This is not a rush toward answers. It's a gentle unfolding into honesty. You may sense that conversations begin to feel more intentional. There's less surface level exchange and more presence behind the words. Even simple interactions carry weight, meaning, awareness. This is how connection moves forward when it's grounded. It deepens quietly rather than expanding chaotically. Pisces, when someone is emotionally preparing to move forward, they begin to show up differently. They listen more closely, they respond more thoughtfully, they become more aware of emotional nuance. These shifts are not accidental. They reflect internal readiness. This person is no longer avoiding the connection. They are learning how to engage with it consciously, and you feel this change instinctively. Your intuition remains calm, not alert. You don't feel the need to protect yourself or brace for disappointment. Instead, you feel open and steady. This emotional posture is crucial. It allows the connection to express itself without triggering old defenses. Pisces, you are no longer guarding your heart. You are honoring. This connection may begin to express itself through small, meaningful actions. A message that arrives at the right moment, a question that shows genuine interest, a moment of vulnerability shared without expectation. These expressions matter more than grand gestures because they come from authenticity rather than impulse. You may notice that the connection feels more mutual now, not because of something dramatic that happened, but because of how natural it feels. There is less emotional guessing, less interpretation, more presence. That presence is the clearest indicator of forward movement. Pisces, mutual connections don't require proof. They reveal themselves through ease. You may also become aware that your emotional energy is no longer tied to anticipation. You're not waiting for something to happen to feel complete. You feel grounded regardless. That independence allows connection to flourish rather than become a source of pressure. This person senses that independence. They feel that being close to you does not mean losing themselves. That emotional exchange can exist without obligation. That connection can grow without urgency. This realization allows them to move forward without fear. Pisces, fear dissolves when safety is present. As this bond continues to unfold, you may recognize that the connection is aligning with your current emotional values. You value clarity, you value consistency, you value emotional honesty. And this connection reflects those values rather than challenging them. This alignment didn't happen by chance. It happened because you changed, because you chose growth over repetition, because you learned how to stay present without sacrificing your peace. Pisces, the universe responds to emotional maturity. The more you remain centered, the more the connection stabilizes. The more you trust your intuition, the clearer the path becomes. You are no longer being asked to wait or rush. You are being asked to stay aligned, and alignment always creates movement. In the next part, we will explore how this connection continues to evolve once expression begins, how emotional clarity strengthens over time, and how to remain grounded as forward movement becomes more visible and integrated into your life. Pisces, as this connection continues unfolding, you may begin to sense how it no longer feels like something separate from your life. It's not an event you're waiting for, not a moment you're anticipating. It's becoming woven into your emotional landscape naturally, without effort. This is an important sign of real forward movement. When something truly aligns, it integrates. You may notice that thinking about this person doesn't disrupt your focus. It doesn't pull you out of your day or scatter your energy. Instead, it feels like a quiet awareness that exists alongside your responsibilities, your goals, your routines. That coexistence is not accidental. It's what happens when a connection supports your life rather than competes with it. Pisces, one-sided connections demand attention. Mutual connections allow space. This person is beginning to show that same capacity for space. They no longer feel emotionally distant, but they also don't feel intrusive. Their presence feels balanced, considerate, intentional. This balance is the result of emotional understanding forming on both sides. You may sense that their approach to you feels calmer now, less hesitant, less guarded, not because all fears have vanished, but because trust has begun to replace uncertainty. Trust doesn't arrive all at once. It builds quietly through consistent emotional signal, and consistency is what you're feeling now. Pisces, your intuition responds strongly to consistency. It recognizes patterns of safety. It relaxes when energy becomes predictable in a healthy way. That relaxation allows you to remain open without fear, present without attachment. This connection is no longer triggering your nervous system, it's calming it. You may also notice that you no longer replay conversations in your mind. You're not analyzing every word or gesture. You accept interactions as they are, trusting that clarity will continue to reveal itself. This shift indicates that you feel secure enough to stay present rather than mentally projecting into the future. Pisces, presence is where alignment lives. As this bond continues to move forward, you may feel a deeper sense of emotional grounding within yourself. You're more comfortable expressing who you are without editing or self-protection. You're more at ease allowing connection to develop without controlling its pace. This ease is not passive, it's confident. Confidence rooted in self-trust. You may also notice that your emotional expectations have matured. You're not seeking intensity for reassurance. You're valuing steadiness, sincerity, and respect. And this connection reflects those values. It doesn't overwhelm you, it meets you. Pisces, being met emotionally is rare. And when it happens, it feels quiet, not loud. This person is learning how to meet you in that space. They are adjusting their pace, their openness, their emotional presence to match the connection rather than dominate it. This adjustment shows awareness. Awareness leads to alignment. Alignment leads to movement. You are both learning that moving forward does not require urgency, it requires trust. As time passes, you may feel that the connection has already shifted in ways that are difficult to explain logically. You feel more settled, more grounded, more sure of yourself. These internal changes matter more than external markers because they indicate that the connection is strengthening rather than destabilizing. Pisces, This forward movement is not about rushing toward an outcome. It's about arriving at a shared emotional space where connection can exist sustainably. In the next part, we will explore how this connection continues to deepen without losing balance, how emotional security grows alongside openness, and how to remain centered as the bond becomes a stable part of your emotional world. Pisces, as this connection settles more deeply into your emotional world, you may begin to notice something quietly reassuring. It no longer creates questions that demand answers. Instead, it creates a sense of inner knowing. You don't feel the need to define where things are going. You feel comfortable allowing them to unfold. This comfort is not indifference, it's trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your intuition, trust in the process. This trust changes how you experience connection altogether. You may notice that your emotional body feels calmer when you think about this person. There's no spike of excitement followed by doubt, no rush followed by disappointment. Instead, there is a steady emotional presence that feels grounding. That steadiness is not accidental. It's the result of alignment forming naturally. Pisces, alignment doesn't shout, it settles. This person is becoming more emotionally present in subtle but consistent ways. They may show more curiosity about your inner world. They may engage more thoughtfully. They may reflect your energy back to you in ways that feel familiar and comforting. These signals indicate emotional investment without pressure, and that balance is essential. You may also begin to notice that your intuition feels less reactive and more observant. You're not scanning for signs, you're recognizing patterns. You're not looking for confirmation, you're feeling consistent. This shift allows you to remain emotionally open without being vulnerable in a way that feels unsafe. Pisces, vulnerability without safety creates anxiety. Vulnerability with safety creates intimacy. This connection is moving toward intimacy, not intensity. You may find that moments of silence no longer feel empty. They feel intentional, restful, almost supportive. Silence becomes a shared space rather than a gap to be filled. This is one of the most overlooked signs of emotional alignment. When silence feels safe, connection is strong. This person senses that safety too. They feel that being present with you does not require performance or constant engagement. They feel allowed to be themselves, to take their time, to show up honestly rather than perfectly. That permission creates deeper openness over time. Pisces, emotional openness grows where there is no fear of being rushed. As this connection continues moving forward, you may realize that it's helping you embody a new way of relating. You are more patient, more discerning, more trusting of your emotional boundaries. You no longer confuse attachment with connection. You recognize the difference clearly now. This clarity didn't come from waiting, it came from growth. And because of that growth, this connection can evolve without destabilizing. It can deepen without consuming you. It can move forward without demanding sacrifice. Pisces, this is what emotional maturity feels like in real time. You may also notice that your life feels more spacious emotionally. There is less internal tension, less emotional clutter. You're not holding on to questions that need immediate resolution. You're allowing clarity to arrive organically. This spaciousness creates room for connection to breathe, and breathing is how connection stays alive. As this bond continues to integrate into your life, you may feel a quiet gratitude, not for the outcome, but for the process, for the way this connection has supported your growth, for the way it has shown you what alignment feels like, for the way it has taught you to trust yourself more deeply. Pisces, the connection is moving forward because you are no longer trying to control it. In the next part, we will explore how this forward movement stabilizes into something lasting, how emotional security deepens over time, and how you continue honoring your intuition as this bond becomes a steady presence rather than a question. Pisces, as this connection stabilizes further, you may begin to feel how it no longer needs your attention to survive. It doesn't require reassurance, interpretation, or emotional effort to stay present. Instead, it exists quietly, confidently, as something you can acknowledge without holding on to. This is one of the most profound signs that the connection is truly moving forward. When something is real, it doesn't ask to be proven. You may notice that your emotional responses are simpler now. There's less inner dialogue questioning what things mean, less mental replaying of moments, less anticipation about what comes next. Instead, you feel grounded in the present. You trust that whatever unfolds will do so in a way that respects your peace. Pisces, peace is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of alignment. This person is beginning to operate from that same emotional space. They may feel less conflicted internally, less torn between hesitation and desire. As their emotional awareness settles, their presence becomes more consistent. They don't fluctuate as much. They don't pull away unpredictably. Their energy feels steadier. Steadiness is movement. You may also notice that communication, whether frequent or occasional, feels more natural. It doesn't carry weight or expectation. It doesn't feel like something that needs to go a certain way. It simply exists as part of the connection. This ease indicates that emotional pressure has been released on both sides. Pisces, pressure slows connection. Ease allows it to grow. You may also recognize that your intuition is no longer searching for answers outside yourself. You feel internally guided. You know when to engage and when to step back. You know when something feels aligned and when it doesn't. This self-trust keeps you centered regardless of how the connection continues to evolve. This connection is no longer teaching you through tension, it's teaching you through calm. You may begin to understand that the reason this connection had to move slowly was to ensure that it didn't trigger old emotional patterns. You needed time to build trust in yourself. They needed time to feel safe emotionally. Now that both of those conditions are present, forward movement feels natural rather than forced. Pisces, nothing meaningful was delayed. Everything was prepared. As this bond continues integrating into your life, you may feel a sense of emotional clarity that extends beyond this connection. You become more selective about where you place your energy, more aware of what feels nourishing versus draining, more confident in choosing alignment over intensity. This clarity changes the quality of everything you experience. You may also notice that your emotional world feels quieter now, not empty, just settled. You're no longer carrying unanswered questions. You're no longer holding on to expectations. You're present with what is, trusting that what's meant to move forward will do so without resistance. Pisces, this is emotional freedom. The connection is moving forward because it no longer competes with your inner peace. It complements it. It fits. It belongs. And because of that, it doesn't need to rush to prove itself. It can grow at a pace that supports both of you. In the next part, we will move into how this connection continues evolving over the long term, how mutual presence becomes sustainable, and how you remain grounded as this bond becomes a stable part of your emotional landscape. Pisces, as this connection continues evolving over time, you may begin to realize that its greatest strength is not how intense, but how sustainable it is. It doesn't require constant attention to stay alive. It doesn't depend on emotional highs to feel meaningful. Instead, it rests in something deeper: consistency, respect, and emotional presence. This is what lasting connection feels like. You may notice that your sense of emotional security has grown. You're no longer questioning whether you're valued. You're no longer interpreting silence as distant. You're no longer tying your sense of worth to someone else's pace. That internal stability allows you to experience connection without anxiety. Pisces, anxiety fades when alignment is real. This person is also settling into a clearer understanding of what this connection represents. They may no longer feel the need to analyze it. They may simply accept it as something meaningful that exists in their life. This acceptance allows them to show up more consistently, not because they feel obligated, but because it feels natural. Consistency is not dramatic. Consistency is dependable. You may feel that the connection has reached a point where it no longer surprises you, it reassures you. There's comfort in knowing that the bond exists without needing constant reminders. That comfort is what allows the connection to deepen over time rather than burn out quickly. Pisces, deep connections don't rush, they settle. You may also notice that your emotional awareness continues to expand. You're more attuned to your needs, more comfortable expressing boundaries, more confident in choosing what supports your peace. This growth didn't happen overnight. It was shaped by experiences, reflection, and healing. And this connection has been part of that journey. As the bond continues to integrate into your life, you may feel inspired to move forward in other areas as well. You may make choices that reflect your emotional maturity. You may step away from dynamics that feel draining. You may prioritize calm over chaos. This alignment extends beyond connection. It reshapes your life. Pisces, when one area of your life becomes aligned, others follow. This person senses that alignment within you. They feel the steadiness of your energy. They notice the way you carry yourself. That steadiness invites them to match it. Mutual growth often happens quietly, as each person responds to the other's emotional state. You may also recognize that the connection no longer feels like something that could disappear suddenly. There is a sense of continuity, a knowing that even if circumstances change, the understanding between you remains. This doesn't create attachment, it creates trust. Trust allows you to relax. Pisces, relaxing into connection is a sign of emotional maturity. You are no longer bracing for disappointment or preparing for loss. You're present, you're aware, you're grounded. That emotional posture allows connection to exist without fear, without control, without expectation. And because of that, the connection continues moving forward naturally. In the next part, we will explore how this forward movement shapes your emotional future, how clarity transforms into confidence, and how you continue honoring your intuition as this connection becomes a steady, supportive presence rather than a question you need to answer. Pisces, as this connection becomes a steady presence in your emotional world, something else begins to happen almost unnoticed at first. Your confidence solidifies. Not confidence tied to outcomes or expectations, but confidence rooted in self-trust. You no longer feel the need to protect yourself from possibilities. You feel capable of meeting whatever unfolds with clarity and calm. This is an important evolution. You may realize that the connection no longer defines your emotional state, it enhances it. You feel whole whether the bond is active in a visible way or quietly present in the background. That wholeness allows you to experience connection without fear of losing yourself, and that is what makes forward movement sustainable. Pisces, sustainability is built on self-trust. This person senses that shift within you. They notice that you are not seeking reassurance, not pushing for certainty, not reacting to silence. Instead, you are present, grounded, emotionally available without being emotionally dependent. That presence is deeply attractive because it creates safety. Safety invites honesty. As safety grows, communication, whether verbal or energetic, becomes clearer. There is less room for misunderstanding because neither of you is projecting fear into the connection. You're meeting each other as you are, not as you fear you might be. You may notice that when you interact now, it feels simpler. There's less effort required to be understood, less tension around how things are perceived. You feel free to be yourself without strategizing. That freedom is one of the most overlooked signs that a connection is truly moving forward. Pisces, freedom within connection is rare, and it is precious. You may also find that your intuition feels quieter now, not because it has gone silent, but because it no longer needs to alert you. When things are aligned, intuition doesn't shout. It reassures, it steadies, it confirms without urgency. This quiet knowing allows you to remain open without anxiety. As this connection continues unfolding, you may notice that it supports your emotional independence rather than threatening. You don't feel pulled away from your path or distracted from your purpose. Instead, you feel encouraged to stay aligned with what matters to you. This is how meaningful bonds integrate into your life. They reinforce who you are becoming. Pisces, connections that move forward in a healthy way do not derail your growth. They support it. This person may also begin to align their actions more closely with their feelings, not through grand gestures, but through reliability, through showing up when it matters, through being emotionally present in ways that feel consistent. Reliability is a form of love that speaks quietly but clearly, and you recognize it instinctively. You may feel a growing sense of ease around the future, not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you trust your ability to navigate whatever does. That trust keeps you centered. It prevents you from slipping back into old patterns of overthinking or emotional anticipation. Pisces, anticipation fades when confidence grows. As the connection continues to move forward, you may realize that you're no longer trying to hold on to it. You're allowing it to exist, and that allowance gives it room to deepen naturally. What is free to breathe is free to grow. In the next part, we will explore how this connection influences your long-term emotional direction, how clarity becomes self-assurance, and how you continue honoring your intuition as this bond becomes part of your future rather than a question of the past. Pisces, as this connection continues shaping your emotional future, you may begin to notice how it quietly influences the way you see yourself. You carry yourself differently, with more calm, more self-respect, more certainty in what you deserve. This shift didn't happen overnight. It formed gradually as you learned to listen to your intuition instead of questioning. This connection didn't give you that strength. It revealed it. You may realize that you no longer feel the urge to prove your value. You're not waiting to be chosen or validated. You already know who you are and what you bring emotionally. That knowing creates a natural confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, steady and grounded. Pisces, Grounded confidence is magnetic. This person feels that magnet. They sense that being close to you doesn't come with emotional chaos or expectation. It comes with presence, with openness, with honesty. That realization allows them to relax into the connection rather than resist it. Resistance fades when authenticity feels safe. As the bond continues moving forward, you may notice that the future feels less abstract. You're not fantasizing about possibilities or worrying about outcomes. You're focused on how things feel right now. And right now, they feel aligned. This presence keeps you connected to reality instead of imagination, and that keeps the connection healthy. Pisces. Healthy connections live in the present. You may also become aware that your emotional intuition has matured into discernment. You don't absorb others' emotions the way you once did. You can sense feelings without carrying them. You can empathize without losing yourself. This emotional boundary is one of the greatest gifts you've developed, and it allows connection to exist without overwhelm. This person benefits from that boundary too. They feel seen without being analyzed, accepted without being controlled, supported without being smothered. That emotional balance encourages them to show up honestly rather than defensively. Pisces, defensiveness dissolves when understanding is present. As time moves on, you may recognize that this connection doesn't demand transformation. It accompanies it. You continue growing, evolving, expanding, and the connection adapts with you instead of holding you in place. This adaptability is a sign of mutual respect and emotional compatibility. You are no longer afraid of outgrowing connection. You trust that what's aligned will grow with you. This trust creates emotional freedom. You may also feel a deeper sense of gratitude, not just for the connection itself, but for the version of yourself you've become through this process. You're more aware, more patient, more discerning, more trusting of your inner guidance. These qualities shape every relationship you encounter moving forward. Pisces, the universe often uses connection as a mirror for growth, and what you see reflected now is strength, clarity, and emotional maturity. As this bond continues unfolding, you may feel that it no longer needs explanation or justification. It simply fits. It feels natural. It aligns with your values, your pace, your emotional needs. That alignment allows you to move forward without fear of losing yourself or repeating the past. In the next part, we will explore how this connection settles into long-term emotional stability, how trust deepens through lived experience, and how you continue honoring your intuition as the bond becomes part of your ongoing journey rather than a question you need answered. Pisces, as this connection settles into long-term emotional stability, you may begin to notice how trust deepens, not through promises, but through lived experience. Trust grows when actions align with feelings over time. When presence remains consistent, when emotional availability doesn't disappear under pressure. This is how connection transforms from possibility into something reliable. Reliability feels calm. You may sense that this bond no longer needs constant attention to remain alive. It exists quietly, confidently, as something you can return to without fear that it will vanish. This sense of continuity allows you to relax emotionally. You're no longer bracing for change. You're allowing consistency to unfold. Pisces, consistency is the language of security. This person is also settling into that security. They no longer feel conflicted about the connection. They may not need to analyze it anymore. They accept it as part of their emotional landscape. This acceptance allows them to show up more naturally, without hesitation or second guessing. When someone accepts connection internally, expression follows naturally. You may notice that communication feels grounded now, less effortful, less emotionally charged, more honest. You're not trying to impress or protect yourself, you're simply present. This presence creates a safe emotional environment where both of you can be real. Pisces, real connection thrives in authenticity. As this bond continues to move forward, you may also notice that your emotional resilience has grown. You're not afraid of conflict or difference. You trust your ability to navigate emotions with clarity and compassion. This resilience keeps the connection from becoming fragile. It gives it strength. You may also recognize that the connection no longer defines your happiness. It complements it. You're fulfilled on your own, and the bond adds depth rather than dependence. This independence ensures that forward movement remains healthy and sustainable. Pisces, sustainable love doesn't require sacrifice of self. This connection is also teaching you patience, not the kind that waits passively, but the kind that trusts the unfolding. You're comfortable allowing things to develop at their own pace, knowing that what's aligned will remain. This patience creates space for deeper understanding rather than rushed decisions. As time passes, you may feel a sense of emotional grounding that extends beyond this connection. You're calmer in your relationships, more discerning, more attuned to what feels nourishing. This clarity is a direct result of learning to trust your intuition fully. Pisces. Intuition becomes most powerful when it's trusted without question. You may also notice that your emotional boundaries are clearer now. You know when to engage and when to rest. You know when to speak and when to listen. This balance allows connection to exist without draining you. It allows intimacy without overwhelm. And because of that balance, the connection continues to move forward naturally. You may feel a quiet excitement, not anticipation, but appreciation. Appreciation for how far you've come, for how this connection reflects your growth, for how it supports your emotional well being rather than challenging it. Pisces, this is what emotional alignment feels like when it becomes stable. In the next part, we will explore how this connection becomes part of your long term emotional path, how trust transforms into quiet confidence, and how you continue honoring your intuition as this bond becomes a steady presence in your life. Pisces, as this connection becomes part of your long term emotional path, you may notice how confidence replaces uncertainty almost effortlessly. You're no longer asking yourself whether things will work out. You're no longer bracing for emotional shifts. You're present, aware, and grounded in your own truth. That grounded presence is what allows connection to feel steady rather than fragile. This is quiet confidence. You trust your intuition now not because it's loud, but because it's consistent. It doesn't fluctuate with mood or circumstance. It guides you gently, reminding you when to open and when to pause. This inner guidance keeps you aligned no matter how the connection continues to unfold. Pisces, alignment is what carries connection forward over time. You may notice that your emotional reactions have softened, not because you feel less, but because you feel with clarity. You're no longer overwhelmed by emotion. You experience it, understand it, and allow it to pass naturally. This emotional regulation is a sign of deep maturity, and it allows the bond to exist without triggering old patterns. This person senses that maturity within you. They feel that being emotionally close to you does not mean navigating chaos or uncertainty. It means stability, presence, respect. That realization encourages them to show up more fully, not because they feel pressured, but because it feels safe to do so. Safety deepens connection. As the bond continues to move forward, you may find that your expectations are realistic and grounded. You're not projecting into the future or holding on to imagined outcomes. You're allowing the relationship, whatever form it takes, to reveal itself through experience rather than assumption. This openness creates space for authenticity to grow. Pisces, authenticity thrives where there is no fear of loss. You may also notice that your emotional independence remains intact. You don't lose yourself in the connection. You don't put your life on hold. You continue growing, evolving, and pursuing what matters to you. And the connection adapts to that growth rather than resisting. This adaptability is a sign of true compatibility. You're learning that meaningful connections do not require sacrifice of self. They support your evolution. They encourage you to remain aligned with your values. They reinforce your sense of purpose rather than distract from it. Pisces, this is how connection becomes sustainable. As time goes on, you may feel an increasing sense of peace about the future. Not because everything is predictable, but because you trust your ability to navigate uncertainty with grace. You know that whatever unfolds, you will meet it with awareness rather than fear. That trust keeps you centered. This connection is no longer something you question. It's something you experience, and experiencing it feels calm, supportive, and grounding. That experience shapes how you approach all relationships moving forward. Pisces, you've learned that love doesn't need to be dramatic to be real. It doesn't need to be intense to be meaningful. It doesn't need to be rushed to move forward. It simply needs to be aligned, and alignment is exactly where you are now. In the next part, we will explore how this connection continues to unfold with grace over time, how mutual understanding deepens naturally, and how you remain present and grounded as the bond becomes a stable, supportive element in your life. Pisces, as this connection continues unfolding with grace, you may begin to notice how mutual understanding deepens without effort. You don't need long explanations. You don't need to clarify every feeling. There is an unspoken comprehension that grows stronger over time. built through presence rather than words. This is one of the clearest signs that a connection has moved beyond uncertainty into trust. Trust doesn't rush, trust settles. You may feel that emotional misunderstandings resolve more easily now. When something feels unclear, it doesn't linger. There is space for reflection instead of reaction. This emotional flexibility allows the bond to grow without tension, without fear of missteps. You're no longer afraid of being misunderstood because understanding has become the foundation. Pisces, foundations are built quietly. This person is also learning how to meet you emotionally without overthinking. They feel less pressure to say the right thing or act a certain way. They sense that authenticity is enough, that being present matters more than being perfect. This realization allows them to relax into the connection rather than perform for it. When performance fades, intimacy grows. You may notice that emotional closeness no longer feels intense or overwhelming. It feels natural, comfortable, almost familiar. That familiarity doesn't come from habit, it comes from resonance, from two emotional worlds recognizing each other without force. Pisces, resonance feels like home. As the connection continues to integrate into your life, you may realize that it doesn't demand change from you. It doesn't ask you to become someone else. It doesn't require compromise of your values. Instead, it supports who you already are becoming. That support creates a sense of emotional safety that allows deeper connection to form organically. You may also notice that your intuition remains your strongest guide. You're not seeking advice or reassurance from outside sources. You trust what you feel. You trust how your body responds. You trust the calm that settles when things are aligned. This self-trust keeps you centered regardless of how the connection continues to unfold. Pisces, trusting yourself is the key to trusting connection. As time goes on, you may feel that this bond has become part of your emotional rhythm. It doesn't disrupt your days. It flows alongside them. You think of this person with warmth rather than uncertainty. You feel their presence without needing confirmation. This emotional continuity is a sign that the connection has stabilized. Stability doesn't mean stagnation. It means security. You may also feel a growing sense of gratitude for the process itself, not just for where things are now, but for how they arrived here. For the patience, the growth, the awareness, these elements shape the connection into something that feels healthy rather than fragile. Pisces, healthy connections don't rush to prove themselves. They allow themselves to be lived. As this bond continues forward, you may find that it inspires you to approach life with more gentleness, more patience, more trust in timing. This shift affects everything, not just relationships. You're more present, more accepting, more aligned. In the next part, we will explore how this connection continues to support your emotional evolution, how it reinforces your sense of self rather than challenging it, and how you remain grounded as the bond becomes a quiet, steady presence in your life. Pisces, as this connection continues to unfold, you may begin to feel a deeper sense of emotional integration than ever before. This bond no longer feels like something external to your life. It feels interwoven with your inner stability. You don't separate it from who you are or where you're going. It exists as part of your emotional foundation, steady and present. This is not attachment. This is alignment. You may notice that your sense of emotional security no longer fluctuates based on interaction or silence. You feel grounded regardless. That grounding is essential because it means the connection is no longer influencing your emotional state. It's reflecting it. You are steady, and the bond mirrors that steadiness. Pisces. When connection mirrors stability, it can move forward without resistance. This person feels that grounding as well. They sense that being close to you does not require emotional vigilance. They don't feel the need to guard themselves or manage expectations constantly. They feel allowed to be present without pressure, open without obligation. That emotional freedom encourages authenticity. Authenticity is what deepens connection over time. You may notice that conversations feel easier now, even when they touch on meaningful subjects. There's no fear of saying the wrong thing, no anxiety about how emotions will be received. There's space for honesty without consequence. This openness didn't appear suddenly. It grew gradually as trust settled in. Pisces, trust is built through emotional consistency. As this bond continues integrating into your life, you may recognize that it supports your emotional autonomy rather than challenging. You remain connected to your goals, your values, your sense of self. The connection doesn't pull you away from your path, it walks alongside it. That companionship is subtle but powerful. You are learning that connection does not require sacrifice. It requires alignment. You may also notice that your emotional intuition feels more refined now. You're not absorbing energy the way you once did. You can sense feelings without carrying them. You can empathize without losing your center. This emotional discernment allows the connection to exist without overwhelm. This person benefits from that discernment too. They feel understood without being analyzed, supported without being controlled, seen without being scrutinized. That balance allows them to relax into the connection rather than resist it. Pisces, resistance dissolves where acceptance lives. As time continues, you may feel that the connection has reached a point where it no longer needs explanation. You don't need to define it constantly. You don't need to justify it to yourself or anyone else. It simply feels right, calm, present, aligned. That feeling is not fleeting. It's rooted. You may also begin to realize that this connection has shifted the way you approach emotional bonds entirely. You're more patient, more observant, more trusting of your internal signals. You no longer rush toward answers or cling to possibilities. You allow clarity to arrive in its own time. Pisces, clarity always arrives when you stop chasing it. This bond continues moving forward because both of you are now capable of holding it without fear. You're not afraid of depth. You're not afraid of closeness. You're not afraid of silence. These fears no longer define how you can. Instead, you are defined by presence. And presence is the most powerful form of emotional availability. As we move closer to the conclusion of this message, the final pieces of understanding begin to settle. You are not here to repeat old cycles. You are here to experience connection in a way that feels sustainable, respectful, and deeply aligned with who you are now. Pisces, what is unfolding is not dramatic, but it is meaningful. Not loud, but it is real. Not rushed, but it is moving. In the next part, we will move into the final integration and closure, bringing everything together in a way that solidifies this understanding and completes the journey of this message with clarity, peace, and emotional certainty. Pisces, as everything comes together now, there is a quiet sense of completion settling within, not an ending, but a wholeness, a feeling that nothing is missing, nothing needs to be forced, and nothing is being held back. This connection has found its place, not as a question, not as a longing, but as a truth you can live with peacefully. You understand now that moving forward does not always mean dramatic change. Sometimes it means stability. Sometimes it means continuity. Sometimes it means allowing something meaningful to exist without trying to shape it into what you think it should be. This understanding is the final shift. You are no longer trying to define the connection. You are experiencing it. Pisces, this is emotional completion. You may feel a deep sense of calm when you reflect on how far you've come. The uncertainty that once felt heavy is gone. The emotional noise has quieted. In its place is a steady awareness that you can trust yourself completely. You don't need external confirmation to know when something is real. You feel it in how your body relaxes, in how your mind settles, in how your heart remains open without fear. This is the clarity you were always moving toward. This person feels the same calm when it comes to you. They no longer experience the connection as something confusing or unresolved. It has settled into understanding, into acceptance, into presence. Whether expressed openly or held quietly, the bond exists without tension. Pisces, bonds that exist without tension are the ones that endure. You may notice that the future no longer feels uncertain in a way that creates anxiety. It feels open in a way that invites trust. You're not trying to predict what happens next. You're allowing life to unfold while remaining aligned with your inner truth. That alignment is your anchor. You've learned that connection doesn't need to be chased. It doesn't need to be tested. It doesn't need to be proven. What is mutual always finds balance. As you move forward from this moment, you carry with you a deeper understanding of how connection works when it's healthy. You know the difference between intensity and alignment, between attachment and presence, between longing and recognition. These distinctions will guide you long after this chapter continues to evolve. Pisces, this message was never meant to push you toward action. It was meant to return you to yourself. And from that place of self-connection, everything else aligns naturally. You are not waiting anymore. You are not wondering anymore. You are not doubting anymore. You are present, and presence is where real connection lives. Take a moment now to breathe deeply, to notice the calm in your chest, to recognize the steadiness in your thoughts. This calm is not temporary. It's the result of growth, awareness, and trust coming together. Pisces, whatever continues to unfold from here will do so in alignment with who you are now. Not who you were, not who you feared being, but who you have become, grounded, intuitive, emotionally aware, and deeply connected to your own truth. This connection is moving forward because you are moving forward with clarity, with peace, with trust. And that is where this message completes itself.